بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون صدق الله العظيم. Honorable Ulama Kiram and my dear respected brothers and young friends, the story of Habib al-Najjar was taking place, and that in the end, the people of the town, his fellow local people, the community, they ended up killing him because they did not like the message that he was giving of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and turning away from the idols. After destroying the people, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in kanat illa sayhata wahida, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel, illa sayhata wahida fa idahum qamidun, and they became extinguished. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not have to send thousands of people, an army of thousands of people with weaponry, etc. No, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to destroy somebody, it's only one angel which is sufficient. In fact, ulama say that even an angel is not needed. But because his dunya is dawul asbab, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends an angel. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's kun fayakun is sufficient. So anyway, they say that Jibreel ﷺ descended, and in the old days, the cities had walls around them. So he got hold of the gates of the city, and he made one scream. And that scream was so loud that all the people of the locality, all the community, they all were destroyed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that فَإِذَاهُمْ خَامِدُونَ, they became like burnt out fire. When fire is burning, initially it's raging, it's throwing out sparks, and the flames are reaching high up. But by morning, when the fire is finished, all you see is nothing. There's ash over it, and everything is finished. Likewise, these people, when Habib al-Najjar came to tell them, and the prophets were informing them and calling them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they with the aggressive attitude and arrogance, they were being very aggressive. But as soon as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment came down, then they were totally destroyed, and they were extinguished like fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentions that Ya hasratan al-ibad. Allah mentions and expresses the anguish. Ya hasratan al-ibad. What anguish about my bondsmen, that so many prophets came. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is expressing the anguish and grief that so many prophets came to these people. 3 prophets came, Habib al-Najjar came, and they were all calling them towards good. They were counseling them towards good. They were guiding them towards eternal happiness, and they were trying to connect them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they put efforts in trying to get them into Jannat, into eternal happiness, eternal bliss. But rather than accepting the call and the message of these prophets, rather than obeying what they were saying, instead, because of their arrogance, it became a barrier. And rather than becoming humble in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and accepting the call of the prophets and proclaiming the Tawheed, they remain in the darkness of ignorance and in their disobedience. And this caused their destruction, and they have been destroyed forever. The punishment they tasted in this world, and a more heavier and a severe punishment to come in the after. So upon this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is expressing, or rather mentioning, the grief and the anguish that only if these people would have accepted the call of the prophets, only if these people listened and obeyed and they said Sami'na wa ta'ana, then the whole future of these people would have changed. But they decided to stay in their arrogance and in their disbelief. Allah ibn Kathir mentions that Allama Qatada rahmatullah alayhi, he says that this will be their saying when they will see on the day of Qiyamah, when they themselves will see the punishment after they be resurrected and they see Jahannam, etc. Then upon this they will say to themselves that Ya hasratan, that woe, what grief and what anguish over us, that we did not listen to these people, and we faulted and we erred and we erred in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. and today we have to taste the punishment of Jahannam. And some say that this message, this Ya Hasratan al-Ibad, this was a statement of the three prophets. When the three prophets saw that the Qawm, they all decided to hurt Habib al-Najjar, and they pounced on him and they cold-bloodedly killed him. When they saw this, that he's just been killed, and they sensed that Allah's adhab is coming down, then the prophets turned on and they said, Ya Hasrat al-Ibad, only if these people would have accepted, only if they'd have accepted the call of the prophets, only if they have listened to what this Habib al-Najjar was saying, then neither would have the punishment come down, and neither would they have to taste the punishment. So anyway, and some say that this statement was of the angels, that when they saw all this, they said, when we see somebody is being advised daily, day in, day out, their parents are advising them about good things, but that boy, that person turns away, and then he goes on the wrong track, and he falls, and he's doing nothing but hurting himself, then the parents have this anguish in, okay, why did he not listen? Why did he not just do what he was told? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created Jannat for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, Wallahi ila daris salam. Allah is calling us towards Jannat. He doesn't want anybody to go in Jannah. Allah is all merciful. But when somebody becomes a rebel, in this country we have jails. But the jails are not made to put people in jail. The jails are made just for rebels. For another king or the parliament or the whole government, they want people to live happily, enjoy their life in this world. They want people to live harmoniously within each other. But those that become rebels, and the jail is for them. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put anybody in Jannah. But when servants and ibad become such that they totally disobey Allah, they disregard His commands. In fact, they go to the extent of shirk and ascribing partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this puts such anger in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These people are then destined for Jahannam. And this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya Hasrat al-Ibad. That so many messengers came, so many people calling you towards a beautiful message, a good thing. Why couldn't you listen? Why can't you? And everything was according to intellect. But their arrogance stopped them from this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then goes on to say that مَيَأْتِهِمْ مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. That this was not just the case with the Qawm and the nation of Habib al-Najjar. This was the case with all previous prophets. That whenever a prophet would come and he would try to guide people, and he would try to take them out of falsehood, take them out of sin, call them towards Allah's tawheed, oneness, Allah's obedience, ibadat, then they would turn and they would mock the people. They would mock the Anbiya. They would take fun out of them. They would torture them. They would hurt them. And they weren't ready to give up their way of life. Because when the prophets come, logically whatever they say makes 100% sense. When a prophet comes and he gives his message that believe in the Allah that has created you. Only one Allah can create you. They can't have multiple, just like you can't have multiple kings in one country. If you have two kings, the whole country will go upside down. If you have two parliaments, the whole country will go upside down. If you have two principles in one institution, when all these make sense, and how can you have two lords? How can you worship 10 idols? So whatever the prophets used to say logically made sense. But because they were so accustomed to their way of life, and they weren't ready to give up their lowly desires and the life they were living, and logically they had no answer as well. So what would they do? They would end up taking mockery of the prophets. And nowadays we see that on a smaller scale, that in the masjids, in madaris, ulama, aimma, imams, they preach and they give sermons and they talk to a general public, and they are talking about the khurafats and the ills and the evils are taking place in our communities, whether it's in weddings. We hear that people have gone to such extent that they call people from around the country, non-Muslims, to play violin, to play the piano in their weddings. A wedding that starts with this, what barakah is going to be in that wedding? But when these ulama and these aimma mention these things from the minbar, and they try to tell the people that this is not the correct way, this is the wrong way, then the answer, they know logically is wrong. They know that yes, what the Imam Sahib is saying is right, and what we are doing is wrong, we are erring and we are in error. But because of their so-called arrogance, or because they don't want to leave their lowly desires for their whims, then they start making funny comments. The Imam Sahib's old school, or they don't understand the reality, they're not working on the outside, they're in their kukulan, etc. So on. This is totally wrong. What the Imam Sahib is saying, or what he's trying to pull you towards, is hidayat. He wants you to go into Jannat. Just like once ago, Hazrat Muhammad Time gives an example that two people were wanting to go for Hajj. He gives an example so people understand. So he said, one person, the local person, he told him that when you go for Hajj from India, then these rupees won't work there. Make sure you change the currency and take riyals with you. So this person changes the money into riyals and he goes. The other person, he says, what are you talking about? I'm going to take these riyals, and he takes sackloads of riyals. When he gets to Saudi, when he gets to Makkah Mukarramah, he's in need, he's got necessities to fulfill. He's got rupees with him. And he's going in every shop, the necessity is there, he's got the money, but will that currency work? Will any shopkeeper give him anything for rupees? When he gets there, he will realize, what did I do? I've been deceived, I've been a fool. Whereas the other person who went, he changed his currency in India and he went with riyals. When he goes there, whatever necessities are, openly he will to fulfill them. So Moshe Tamil says, the ulama are doing the same thing. They are teaching you the currency of akhirat. They are teaching you that in the akhirat, this is the currency, amal salih is the currency. But you think that these ulama, what they're telling us, this is not, when you get to the akhirat, as Moshe Tamil, then you will have regret and remorse. What these ulama were telling us, what these aimma were telling us, what the preacher was telling us, what the ustad was telling us, it was 100%. That was the currency. For me to go in Jannat is amal salih and Allah's rahmat. But I thought it is otherwise. I thought this doesn't, I don't need this, I don't need this. So anyway, Allah SWT says that مَا يَأْتِي مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ, that no prophet came, but they were mocked at, they were tortured, they were made fun of. And like you see, this shouldn't occur in our life, that when our ulama, when our aimma, when our asatidha, when our seniors tell us something, then we should understand, accept, and we should listen. We shouldn't have an arrogant behavior or an arrogant face that we put their advice to aside. Allah SWT goes on to say, أَلَمْ يَرَوْكُمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنَ الْقُرُونِ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ أَلَمْ يَرَوْكُمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ, have we not seen how many generations that we have destroyed before them? But before this generation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now turning his attention and engaging the mushriks of Makkah, because this Surah Yasin was revealed in Makkah Mukarramah in the middle part of Rasulullah's life. And at that time, the Quraysh were at their pinnacle of arrogance. They were not ready to listen to Rasulullah. They were going against him and they were torturing the Sahabas. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to a Quraysh that He's inviting them to ponder. That ponder on the previous, I've given you an example of one community of Habib al-Najjar. But you are traveling from Makkah to Sham, you are traveling from Makkah to Yemen. It's your yearly journeys you're going through. And you pass through Ad and Thamud. You see the dwellings, the destroyed dwellings. You see nobody there. Have you not seen these generations that once upon a time they were so arrogant, once upon a time they were filled with might and they were much more stronger than you. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to destroy somebody, there is not even a sign left of them. Nothing is there. Just their ruined dwellings are just there. Just the ruins are left. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling upon the mushriks of Makkah, the Quraysh of Makkah, that أَلَمْ يَرَوْكُمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ, have you not seen how many generations we have destroyed before them? أَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ, and they will certainly never return. These people that we have destroyed, our rule is once they leave this world, they will never return. They will never return to tell you what they are facing, or they will never return to tell you what they are going through. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that once Allah destroys somebody, that's the end of it. He cannot come back to his world. So somebody might think that, okay, that's it. If you're not going to come back to his world, then kya kharaj hai, we'll live our life of mazan, we'll live our lowly desire life, and that's it, that's the end of it, that's the end of the chapter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes and says, وَإِن كُلٌّ لَمَّا جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ, that no. وَإِن كُلٌّ, finally on the day of Qiyamah, إِن كُلٌّ لَمَّا جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ, they will all be presented before us collectively. That no, the game is not over. Just because we have destroyed them, that doesn't mean that's the end of it. In fact, a day will come where we will resurrect every single nation, every single community, every single soul, every single individual. We will resurrect them and they will have to give accountability. They will have to answer before us. They will have to answer for their actions. They will have to answer for their lives. And then we will put them where they deserve to go. If they have lived a life of good, then we will put them in Jannat. And if they have lived a life of evil, then they will go in Jahannam. And so the people of Makkah, the mushriks used to say that they used to always argue that once we إِذَا كُنَّا تُرَابًا وَإِضَامًا, when we die, we're going to become mitti, we're going to become soil, we're going to become sand. What's going to happen after that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't worry. What's going to happen after that is we're going to resurrect you and we're going to take accountability. So Rasulullah mentioned in the hadith that لا تزال قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن عمري فيما أفنى وعن عملي فيما فعل وعن ماله من أين اكتسبه وفيما أنفقه وعن جسمه فيما أبلاه. That on the day of Qiyamah, Allah Rasulullah mentioned that no individual, no person will be able to move off. He will not be able to go into Jannah or will not be sent to Jahannam until he answers some questions. Allah is so Rahim. Never will you find any institution, any school, any place where before the exam they give you the questions. Whether it's at school, whether it's at college, whether it's at university, whether it's at work, whether they're going, nobody gives you a test, the questions before. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so Rahim, He's already given us the questions that on the day of Qiyamah, I'm going to ask you these questions. So now use your life to prepare and live such a life, morally, physically, spiritually, such a life that on the day of Qiyamah, when you ask these questions, easily you will answer. Easily you will give answers. And in regards to Allah subhanahu mentioned, especially two things will be answered, question. One is your whole life. As a whole, Allah subhanahu asks, where did you spend your life? And specifically, He will interrogate you on your youth. That where did you spend your youth? Because youth is a time. Youth is a time where a person, either he makes or he breaks. Youth is a time where he becomes a friend of Allah or he distances himself from Allah. That's on the day of Qiyamah, Rasulullah mentioned that sab'atun yudhilluhum Allah fi dhilli yawma la dhilla illa dhillu. That 7 people will be under the shade of Allah's arsh on the day of Qiyamah, out of which one will be that shabun nasha'a fi ibadatillah, that youngster who grew up in the worship of Allah. That all day long his mind, his mindset, his fikr, his thoughts, his energy was spent worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All his mindset was towards pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask is regarding a person's wealth. That aina iktasaba, where did you earn it from? And nowadays our youngsters, they very quickly get influenced by people driving flashy cars, people having big cars, having good phones, clothing, this, that, gadgets. They get influenced very quickly. And they want to earn money very quickly. They don't see where the money is coming from. If it's coming from haram avenues, if it's coming from drugs, if it's coming from fraud, if it's coming from lying, from cheating, on the day of Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you, you will call it for it. Min ayna iktasaba, was it halal or haram? When a person has these questions in mind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us these questions beforehand. If a person lives a life with these questions, that Allah is going to ask me how I spent my life. Allah is going to ask me regarding my ilm, the ilm I learned in madrasa, the ilm I learned in Darul, the ilm I had regarding deen that I learned from the masjid, from the imam. How much did I bring that into practice? In terms of my earnings, where did I earn it from? And where did I spend it? I earned it the halal way, but I spent it on haram things. I earned it the haram way and I spent it the haram way. I earned it the haram way and spent the halal things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks each person these questions. When a person has these questions in mind, then inshallah he'll have a focus towards the hereafter. When he has focus of the hereafter, then he will always know that, I'm going to be accountable for this. I'm going to be asked about this. No, I don't want to make this money. Although I could make 50 pounds extra by just lying, by cheating, by just ticking this box. But no, Allah knows on the day of Qiyamah, I don't want to go Jannah for the sake of 50 pounds. What if you get caught for 50 pounds? And what if your whole earnings of youth was haram? You adopted a lifestyle where you wanted a flashy lifestyle of high level clothes, phones, etc. And a normal job doesn't buy you that. And sometimes it's sad to say that even parents see this. Parents see their son is waking up late and he's driving a 20,000 pound car, but they don't say anything because he's paying bills at the house. Rather you call him now and ask him, where are you getting your money? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala call him on the day of Qiyamah in front of everybody, that where do you earn this money? Rather than him getting doomed forever, it's better you stop it right now. And we see our communities, so many youngsters, 14, 15, 16, they start loitering out in the parks and they get wrong habits. And they end up making few bucks here and there, few pounds here and there. And they know deep down that this money is not right. Parents know that where is my son getting this money from? Where did he buy this expensive clothes from, this coat from, this phone from? But they don't ask the question. So it's also a parent's duty that when you see such things, then you should be asking your children. It's better you try to clean things up and make amends in this world than in the after when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to color them. Anyway, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the end, وَإِن كُلُّ لَمَّا جَمِيلَ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ, that all these people that have died, that have been destroyed, that have left this world, wherever you've died, whether you've died on the battlefield, whether you've been killed, whether you've been destroyed, whether you've died a natural death, every single person will be brought in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he will be taken stock of, he will be accounted of. This is the end of the third ruku. And over here, the whole story of Habib al-Najjar finishes. And the message and the lesson that we can take from here, that whoever lives a life for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Habib al-Najjar, he forsake everything. He lived a life to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever lives a life to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then pushes to better himself, mend himself, and help other people, call other people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, call other people towards the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then for him is eternal happiness. Just like when Habib al-Najjar, when he was dying, whilst his people were killing him, some say that the angels came and said, before even dying, he was given the glad tidings of Jannah. Those youngsters, those people that spend their life in such a manner that they are pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every moment of their life goes in pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then from this we can take lesson that inshallah, even us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rahim and Allah is Kareem, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us a good death and will give us also eternal happiness. And this story is also a warning for those people who do not obey, who do not listen, who show their arrogance and pride and turn away from the teachings of prophets, teaching of the Quran. They don't pay heed to it. For them is a great warning that just like the nations before destroyed, you might not be destroyed, but if Allah wants, then He can take away the ni'mat of Iman from you. If He wants, He can give you a bad death, etc. So for those people who are away, for them this is a warning that mend your ways, change your ways and become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the ending of the story. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the correct understanding of the story and the lessons that are within. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to act upon what's been mentioned, what's been heard. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه